Let's get started. Welcome to the 17 December EFMP Connect. Today's conversation will be Respite Care Way Forward. We appreciate you all for joining us for this. Our speakers today will be Ms. Erica Shute, the Chief EAP Operations and Family Support Branch, Ms. Sharon Thompson, half A1SA, Ms. Melissa Reyes, the EFMP Family Support Program Manager, and Mr. Andrew Coates, the Director of EFMP Respite Care. Okay, over to you, Ms. Shute. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lynn, and welcome everyone on behalf of the entire EFMP Central Cell, as well as our partners on the call this morning as well, the Air Force Services Center, Air Force Headquarters Air Force A1S, and our partners with Child Care Aware of America. We all welcome you to the call this morning and glad you're here with us. We have a great group of folks on the line, so this is going to be a great opportunity to share with you where we are in the timeline of this transition of this program, as well as just provide you some information, maybe if you're a family support coordinator, some information on what your role is. And then of course, for our respite care providers on the call today, some information from a Child Care Aware of America that might help you through the application process and other important information to know as we do this transition. So again, very happy and excited to see you all with us today. Thanks so much for sharing an hour of your time with us. And with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and transition this over to our first briefer, who is going to be Miss Sharon Thompson with a respite care update. So over to you, Miss Sharon.
Thank you. So good morning. Let me echo everyone's welcome. We appreciate you taking the time from your schedules. We know that everyone is busier than they would like to be, but what a great opportunity to update you, to share information, and to provide you with a chance to ask questions. For my part, I'll be brief. I think all of you have been along for this ride. It's certainly not been slow or without challenges, but our families have continued to receive the services they need, and that will not change. So, next slide, please. From a policy perspective, we know how we got here and why. It's about policy, it's about doing a better job for our families, providing staff with information, guidance, resources that they'll need to be successful. I do want to put in a shameless plug for our Doty supplement, which you see at the bottom, Daffy 368201. It is currently in 2-letter coordination and it will be published in 2025. That's something certainly that we've all been waiting for. Next slide, please. And again, when you look at where we started in June of 2023, when the Doty was just published, we have moved down this field. And in the next couple of months, with your help, we'll be positioned for this transfer to Child Care Aware of America, effective 1 March of 25. And our families will continue to get the services they need and will not miss a beat, which has certainly been our goal all along and why we're here today. So having said that, Ms. Reyes, over to you.
So good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here today. My name is Melissa Reyes, and I am the EFMP Family Support Program Manager. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what we're kind of doing with EFMP Family Support, just to kind of give you an idea of our continued process. And then we'll go forward from there. So next slide, please. So just to talk a little bit with regard to the respite care process for EFMP families, how we are working this process through the EFMP family support side is families will request respite care information through our local EFMP family support office that is located in the Military and Family Readiness Center. And so they will be provided the documents, and once they've completed those documents will be submitted to the local EFMP family support office. And what happens from that point is then they will forward it up to the central cell office, which is where we are located, and our EFMP medical respite care team will make a level of need determination for the family. Once the family receives their level of need determination, that information is sent directly back to the EFMP family support coordinator at that particular base, and that EFMP family support coordinator provides the information to the family receiving respite care. And so it will depend if the family will qualify for level 3 or level 4. And so as of, there are upcoming changes with regard to that. And so that level of need determination letter will indicate that in the document. All right. And then once those level of need determinations are received by the family, then the family will go through the process of registering within Child Care Aware of America website, and more information will be provided on that. All right, next slide, please. Okay, and just to kind of give you a little bit more information, the respite care process for providers, we will refer always to Child Care Aware of America, as they will be the ones that will mainly be working on ensuring our providers are able to get into the system and ensure that they are vetted. All right, and so for respite care providers and that are on this call, please continue to maintain communication with Child Care Aware of America. Update your information as soon as possible, and of course, maintain your required documents. If there is additional information you need for respite care or just respite care, the respite care program in general, maybe you are working with a family who also knows another family that is an EFMP and you want to provide them information, you can absolutely refer them to these resources. We have our local EFMP Family Support, which is located in the Military and Family Readiness Center. There's also DAF Family Vector, which is a website. And then we also have social media pages, which is Facebook and Instagram. Depending on the base, they may have both. And then, of course, we always refer our EFMP families to Military One Source, which continues to serve as a great resource for all things EFMP as well. All right. And so without further ado, I would like to introduce Mr. Andrew Coates, who is the CCAOA EFMP Respite Care Program Director. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reyes, and good morning, everybody. Thank you for allowing me to be here and to participate in this webinar and go over the really critical information I know everybody is anxious to hear. So if you can go to the next slide, please. I'm going to go over a lot of information, kind of a high-level overview of Child Care Aware of America for those people who may not be familiar with us or heard of us before, as well as how we administer the program, and then kind of move on to some of the transition details for both families and providers so that everybody can be tracking, and then go on to where we can find some general information. One of the things I wanted to cover is we're going to be providing a lot of this information in a lot of different ways in a lot of different places that I'm going to go over towards the end of the presentation. So don't feel like you have to write down everything that you see on the slides here. We're going to be providing this, like I said, in a number of ways. So this information will be available as much as can be made possible. So with that, we can go ahead and go to the next slide and I'll get started. So you can see here a little bit of a blurb, like I said, for those who are not familiar with Child Care Aware of America, to learn a little bit about who we are and what we do. But overall, we are a national child care organization that works in all things child care and helping strengthen the child care system, whether it's working with a network of providers and members and child care resource and referral agencies across the country, working with policymakers, and most importantly, as the reason we're here today, working with the military and the Department of Defense on a variety of child care programs to help make sure that their service members and families can get the child care resources they need. This includes fee assistance for community-based child care, and then, of course, respite care services for those families who qualify for those programs. While some of you may not have heard of Child Care Aware of America before, I imagine that some of you have. We have partnered with the Navy since 2008 on administering their EFMP respite care program, and actually previously partnered with the Department of the Air Force from 2011 to about 2019 on administering that program as well. So some of you, if you've been around previously during that time, you may be familiar with us. And again, we're very excited to be partnering with the Air Force again for this important work. Now, overall, the high level, what we do here at the Child Care Aware of America office is really coordinate the program in terms of enrollment, eligibility, coordinating policy with the Department of the Air Force, providing operational guidance, ensuring payments to providers for the respite care provided, and ensuring that families maintain eligibility and we conduct an annual recertification process, which is standard across all the military programs that we have with Child Care Aware of America, that we have to recertify everybody on an annual basis. But what we do that is, I think, a little bit unique is that we work with our network of organizations and partners across the country to help provide that on-the-ground support. Just as the Air Force works with their local offices, we work with our partners across the country to help, work with families and determine their child care needs, help, with onboarding new providers, providing training resources to providers to meet those requirements. And really just, helping providers and families connect to the resources that they need for the program specifically. So we work with them to help administer at that local level. Next slide, please. So while that covers a little bit of the information on how we run the program, I'm sure everybody's, like I said, anxious to figure out, okay, how do we get there? And how do I make sure that I could be a part of this program, beginning in March of 2025. So starting with families, I wanted to, clarify that the Child Care Aware of America and our program points of contact are working closely with the Department of Defense and Ms. Reyes and Ms. Thompson and Ms. Gonzalez to coordinate, as much as possible on the information that they have, the eligibility that they have for families, demographic information, just for reaching out and points of contact. And the effort there is to minimize the amount of work that'll be required for everybody to kind of ensure their services transfer over with us. So we're trying to do as much of the heavy lifting as we can on the back end with the department, and making sure that we have all the information that is needed to carry the services forward. That said, there are a few things that will be needed just to ensure that we're all on the same page in terms of program operation, and everybody has what they need to move forward with the program under Child Care Aware of America's administration. And the first thing you'll see there is just a basic parent agreement that everybody participating in Child Care Aware of America's EFMP Respite Care program just needs to review, sign, and complete, and return to CCAOA. This just ensures that families understand the various policies and processes and how the program works under Child Care Aware of America's administration, how they can engage with providers, the various policies that they need to follow in the program. And that kind of carries to the second bullet there you see on the screen, which is just emergency forms. When we reach out to all families and providers, we're going to provide both the agreement and the emergency forms. But those emergency forms are really just for families to complete and keep in their home, available to the respite care providers when they're there providing care. We obviously hope that they're never needed, but in the event that there's an emergency, just to make sure that the providers have access to emergency contact information and everything that they would need to know. One of the other points on there that we wanted to clarify for everybody is that we're going to encourage providers and families both to communicate with one another through this transition process to make sure that, they're communicating with us and that they've been able to complete everything that they need to. So we basically make sure that there's no missing gaps, that, we don't get to March 1st and, perhaps a family has transitioned over to Child Care Aware of America, but a provider hasn't, or vice versa. We really want to encourage that engagement. So any information that Child Care Aware of America is requesting can be sent to the email address you'll see on the screen. And like I said before, is going to be provided in a lot of different avenues. That's where the information is going to be submitted to track the parent agreements for the families and make sure we have those for everybody. And that's how we're going to communicate during this transition process. And towards the bottom, you're going to see some of the key dates for this transition. And that first one is pretty important. It's the January 31st of 2025. Our goal for both families and providers is to have what we need between the Air Force and the families by that date, so that we can ensure we get everybody connected in our system during the month of February, and that we'll be ready to, operate and make payments beginning March 1. So the January 31st is going to be that key target date for a lot of people. while that's a key date, it's not the only date. Between February 1st and April 30th, we know that people may have challenges or just maybe slow to submit their paperwork. We want everybody to be as timely as possible, but know it happens. Anything that comes in basically after February 1st, we're going to have that processed in our system and everything ready to go as quickly as we can. We just won't be able to guarantee a March 1st date. So we really want to make sure that and emphasize that everybody gets the information to us by January 31st. And then at the end of February, as we get closer to the launch on 1 March, you're going to receive certificate packets. Each family that transfers over was going to receive a certificate packet from Child Care Wherever America system, basically just confirming that we have everything we need, and that they're connected to their respite care providers that they're working with, and will be ready for payment for March services beginning in 2025. So this is the key information for respite care providers. There is a little bit more information here, and that is because we have to have a lot of, the verifying documentation on file, just like you do with the Air Force. We have to have that on file here at Child Care Wherever America. Now, again, the effort is to not, have duplicative processes wherever possible. And we want to try and use the same information that you may have already done. So we're really going to try and not have providers filling out, too much of the same information. And one of the ways that we're going to do that is the Air Force is going to provide you a process on how to request documentation you have on file with them so that you can acquire that documentation, have it in your own possession, and then share it with Child Care Wherever America. And that ensures basically that you are in control of and maintaining your own information and able to provide that with us. While the general guidance would be to have as much information on file as possible, so requesting all the necessary documents from the Air Force so that you can have everything on hand should we need to refer back to anything. Well, that's going to be the general guidance. You're going to see here on the screen some of the key documentation that we're going to be looking for that we have to have on file at our office to be basically in compliance with the program operation. First and foremost is the background checks. I think everybody knows who's been participating in this program how the key part of compliance and something that we need to ensure that we have. So be sure that you're requesting all the available background check records as possible so you can provide those to Child Care Wherever America. The second is the required trainings for the programs that are going to be consistent. Specifically, the current CPR and first aid certification you're going to see there, that your current certificate, that you have that on file so you could provide that to us and say, hey, Andrew and team, I'm up to date on XYZ required trainings. And then, of course, we want to make sure you're able to be paid and paid properly. So you will have to fill out banking information with us directly. That's something that really can't be transferred. So that is something that you'll have to do. So just a direct deposit form, and then providing the voided check or a bank letter, and then as well as completing a W-9. Something you're going to see on here that might be new for you is a resume, degree, or any special certificates that you may have. For example, a CDA in the child care field, specialized training and special education, anything like that. That's for two reasons. The first of which is when we administer the program and we refer providers to families, we like to help make sure that those connections are between a family and a provider that have similar experience and care needs. So we use your resume and or education or experience to connect you with families that have care needs that match with your experience. So that's a big reason why we request that information. So please be sure not only to have your resume show experience in the program, the respite care program generally, but any previous experience in the field of childcare or special education. And then it serves multiple purposes, which I will get into in a little bit. And again, for all this documentation, it can be sent to the same email address at Child Care Aware of America that you see on the screen. Our team here is going to be collecting all this information during the transition process and making sure that we have everything recorded for your team, and trying to provide each provider with confirmation, once it's received and if everybody's squared away throughout that process, so you know that we have everything received and on file, or if we're missing anything, where and how to get that. The summary of the dates below are going to mirror what we talked about with the family, so I'm not going to reiterate too much of that right now. So it's going to be, again, that January 31st date is going to be key. So we really, really encourage people to send in their information by then. Our team here is going to be moving as quickly as we can through all of that documentation. So when you send it in, be patient and give us a couple days, and we're going to be collecting that as soon as possible. And like I said, following up with those individuals who we are missing anything. The last date I wanted to provide on the screen is really a reminder. While Child Care Aware of America is going to begin communicating with you throughout this transition process, that until March 1st, the program operation is going to continue as normal, for your day-to-day respite care needs. So, still communicating with your points of contact, regarding payment or anything else for services that are happening right now and up till that March 1st date. Once the program officially transitions on March 1st, that's when we will be able to fully assist you with, any program question or need, and we'll start to make payments for respite care that takes place on or after that March 1st date. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so like I said, I just went through a lot of information, and we want to make sure that you all know that you're going to be able to find this information in numerous different places, and it's going to be provided to you in again, a number of different avenues. Again, that email that's listed there first is going to be key, because that's the email that we're going to be communicating through to you from, and is what you're going to be submitting your documents to. So be sure to keep your eyes open in your inboxes for that email address, and that includes your spam or junk folders. We know that sometimes, your Gmail and your Yahoo accounts and all of those, they're really trying to help us out with all the spam emails we get, and unfortunately, sometimes our emails can get caught within that. So make sure, if you think, we should have communicated to you by then, be sure to check those inboxes and even mark that email address as a friendly email, so your email doesn't filter it out in the future. The first communication you're going to receive from us is this Friday. We are working with, the Air Force as we speak on that information. So we're going to make sure we have everybody's contact information and be reaching out this Friday to provide you with, again, a list of the key documents, the process on how to transition your information to Child Care Aware of America, any required steps, and those key dates. And that's going to be coming directly to you. It won't be the last time you hear from us. It's going to be the first communication to kind of carry you through the holidays. We know a lot of people will be busy, spending time with friends and family, maybe even, providing respite care appointments. But any downtime you have, that'll allow you to get started on this process over the holiday period. But we will be reaching out again in the new year, in January 2025, to remind people of the process in case they haven't started it yet. And then as we get, further into January, reaching out to those individuals who we still don't have complete information for. So in case, you're worried about being lost in the transition process here, if we don't have everything from you, we will follow up with you to let you know that we are still missing something. There's also going to be a transition webpage on Child Care Aware of America's website that we're going to try and keep updated as quickly as possible with all the latest information. And we're going to provide that web address in the email to you. We are, like I said, there's a lot of action happening behind the scenes right now. So we're going to have that updated as quickly as possible. And there may be additional information, added after this Friday. So, feel free to mark that as a favorite website and check it frequently, so that way you can see the latest updated information. And having that web page is also going to allow us to go into a little bit more detail than some of the basic email communication. So we're going to try and have that full of information. And then, as I said, once the program administration carries over in March, you're going to be working with a coordinator basically on a regular basis. And as we get into February of 2025 and closer to that launch, we're going to share with you all who those coordinators are going to be and who you could reach out to for questions beginning in March of 2025. Until that time, you're going to be working mostly with TCOA. That way it's a centralized process and you're just coming to one location. But like I said, we will share that information in 2025. I know there are some of you who've been participating in the program, either who had participated with Child Care Way of America in the past, or at the beginning of the presentation I mentioned, you could be in a location where there's both Navy and Air Force families. To name a few, you've got the Florida Gulf Coast, the Hampton Roads, Virginia area. There's quite a few families in both branches there. We are going to be looking and comparing and coordinating with the Air Force to our own records. So if you are actively enrolled with us for the Navy program and we have the information we need for you, we'll be able to use that information and make sure that we have no gaps so that you can continue with services and providing that information or services, for both families. If it's been quite a while since you've worked with our office, maybe 2019 or before, it's likely that that information is outdated, but we will check it and see if there is anything that is up to date that we can use, and we'll just coordinate with you to basically fill the gaps and update that information so that we have the latest information for you on file. So again, we're going to try not to request anything from anybody that they've already done 3 or 4 or 5 times. So we want to try and minimize that as much as possible, and that's going to be the goal through this transition process. So with that, I've been talking for quite a while. I am going to hand it back over to Ms. Lynn, and I believe we're going to move to some questions here.
Thank you, Mr. Coates. Appreciate that. So very quickly, before we move into the question and answer, I wanted to let you know that we have a few reps from the Air Force Service Center that are online as well to help answer questions, Ms. Gonzalez and Ms. Garcia. And we also have 2 more from Mr. Coates' team, Ms. Slagle and Ms. Hugel, that are also online to help us answer questions. So as we do that, I'd ask you to either raise your hand to ask the question or just put it in the chat, and we'll try to answer them in the order that they've been received. And I want to remind one more time, if you've signed on recently, please make sure that you leave your name and your base so that we can keep track of you for attendance purposes. So, and then very lastly, I will have a feedback slide at the end of the session. It takes 2 seconds to take a picture of the QR code and give us a little bit of feedback, and that'll help us to better prepare for the next one. So with that, I'll open the mic for questions. You all enjoy your day.
Okay, this is, I see that Sarah has a question. Sarah Williams, go ahead and ask your question, please.
One is when will the families get their packet? Did I miss that?
With regard to applying for respite care, or you mean the level of need determination? Are they going to
have to reapply, or are they just going, like they just applied a year ago? Are they going to have to do all of that again? Are they going to get
No, ma'am.
No, they're not going to have to do that. Okay, that's good.
They're not going to have to reapply. If they have already received a level of need determination letter from the EFMP Central Cell, then what they will need to do is they will need to upload those documents, but we will walk with them through that process to ensure that they are good to go as well.
Okay. The other thing is who's going to be recruiting families and providers on base?
The information for respite care will continue to be utilized through the same avenues that we have, which is accessing information through the EFMP MNFRC office. And so I will be working with the field. I am the Family Support Program Manager up at AFPC, and I will be working with our EFMP-FS team to work with them to get that information out on their social media pages. So as well as, just pushing it out through their briefings that they normally do. So they will actively be doing what they already do. It's just a matter of if a family is aware, if an EFMP family is aware of a respite care program, we want to really just push the information out there to please go to your local EFMP family support office.
Okay. And then, will we still be doing a timesheet like we've been doing, or will that be a brand new process too?
I will refer that question to Andrew. Andrew, were you able to hear that question?
Yes, thank you. There will likely be a little bit of a different process between how you are paid through the program now. And that's, just because we have different systems, obviously. So that unfortunately will have to be different in a new process, but we want to focus on the transitional information, and we're going to provide more details on that process as we get closer to the March 1 date. And that's, like I said, specifically because we want to focus on getting the documentation from everybody to make sure everybody's good to go, and then provide that additional information as we get closer to the launch date. So you will receive more information on that as we get closer to March 1.
And the last question I have is the process to become a provider going to be more like it was when Child Care Aware had it before, or how the Air Force has it where it's been taking 6-8 months, a long time, and we're losing people that are applying because of the wait? So, because we have a problem with that, we're not getting any new providers on our base because it just takes so long. People move on and do something else. So before, it used to be really easy with Child Care Aware. So I just wondered.
Understood. Going forward, yeah, we have Child Care Aware of America has a relatively standard process, and that's something that we do when we work with, we coordinate with those local partners that I mentioned to enroll providers, and having that local support, I think, to move things along as quickly as possible. I do want to highlight that there are some things that are out of our control, which is, the background check process, which is, I think, often the largest holdup. But we do whatever we can to move that along as quickly as possible and find the fastest avenues to get turnaround on background checks. But I just know that there are some state check requirements out there that do have a long turnaround time. But I definitely hear your concern and know that that's something that we've experienced in the past as well. And that's why we push really hard to try and shorten and minimize that process as quickly as possible, because we know when people are looking to participate in this program and looking to, for a job, they want to start working immediately. They're not necessarily looking to work, like you said, 6 months down the road. So we do what we can wherever we have the ability to shorten that process. But sometimes there are those little bits of hurdles, and we try and communicate that to new providers recruiting as well, so they have that expectation, and we can work with them wherever possible.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. So the next question will be from Emily Chase.
Hello. I just had a quick question, because we do a lot of outreach with the CYP team who manages, or the FCC team, CYP, who manages the providers right now. And I know that they maintain a cell phone that is staffed like 24/7 for, obviously a lot of providers probably aren't providing care in the middle of the night, but they get calls, weekends, evenings, from providers with questions. Are they going to have access to anyone to answer their questions that arise while they're providing care? Because now that it seems like CYP will be removed.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. That will be, they will have contact information. It will, and especially ways to contact and reach out in case of emergencies or questions in the middle of the night. But that there isn't right now a resource that is staffed 24/7 across the location. So that's something that's good to know that providers will need to adjust to, or have, I guess, a different expectation or process to follow with us. So we can make note of that and work through that as we get closer to that March 1 date. So that way providers know where to direct their questions. Like you said, should they be providing care over the weekend or, overnight care, and have to direct a question to the program.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so our next question from Marcy Sylvia.
Hi, I had two questions. One is, One is, will headquarters still make the determination if they qualify for respite with LON 3 and 4?
Yes, we will still be following the same process with regard to families applying for respite care.
And the second question was clarification. Our role as EFMP-FS is still the same, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Your role with providing information to families with regard to respite care, and then also providing them their level of need determination once it's been made from the EFMP medical team, you will provide that to the families as well. So yes.
Awesome. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. All right. I have a question from Miss Wendy Scott.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning. So my first question is, because I have like three. My first question is currently the families that are getting sibling care included in that, are they going to be able to work with those respite providers to provide a secondary pay for sibling care if they want that care during that EFMP respite time for that EFMP family member?
Very good question, Wendy. So let me refer that. I mean, that would be something that they would have to discuss with CCAOA, I'm assuming. Andrew, I would refer that question to you.
Yeah, that's something that we're going to lay out for the parents and the providers both in the program agreement. That's something that we currently do with the Navy, so people know how to navigate that. It is a challenging space, obviously, with the change in the DOTI requirements and instructions that EFMP respite care only provided to the eligible EFM children. And not the siblings. So I know it's a unique question, but yeah, we try and lay that out so that families know, how to navigate that space.
And my second question is the CCOA going to be collaborating with us as well on those emails and stuff that are going to be going out to the families, or Ms. Reyes, is that all going to come down through you guys?
Wendy, it will be coming through my office to all of you at the field.
Okay. And another question is can we go ahead and reach out to our families now to prepare them and go ahead and send them the information as far as the stuff that they need to go ahead and collaborate to get from the FCC provider as far as all their forms so that they can be ready to go on that first week of January, and considering we're only got 30 days to get them to get it all in?
So great question. And so I will have an email that will be sent to all of you. So it will be a standardized email you'll be sending to your families on what specific information they need to start putting together. So thank you for asking that. But yes, I will be sending you that template for you to send out to your families.
And then my last question is are the local agency contracts already set, or are we still working those things with the CCOA?
Yeah, those are still in process. And that's, as we get closer to that March 1 date, we're going to let everybody know who those local contacts are so you can coordinate with those individuals.
Awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for your question.
Okay, thank you. So the next question, just going up my list here, I have Laura. I don't have a last name. So Laura, I see a hand up for you.
Yes. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So in terms of the other question I have, with siblings being out of the mix, yes, we need to know how to deal with that, because in most families, the siblings are there when we're caring for the EFMP child. But is the pay rate also going to change in terms of what we've been accustomed to for that child, the EFMP child?
So that's part of actually the process we're going through right now. So as I mentioned before, CCOA currently works with the Navy on their respite care program, and both the Navy and the Department of the Air Force are moving through the standardization process. And while the programs differed before, and I think would differ in their pay rate now, we're basically working together to align that into one payment process. So we're basically looking at both how the Air Force pays and how the Navy pays for providers, and basically turn that into one process. So that way, again, particularly providers operating in areas where there's both Navy and Air Force families, it'll just be the same process across the board. So while that's not been finalized yet, we are working quickly to determine that, and we're going to follow up with additional information and really detail that and lay that out for you so you know how that process is going to be going forward.
But at this time, you don't know when that information will be out.
Correct. We are still working through that to make sure that we can align those between the two branches. But wanted to, as we talked about how there's that tight turnaround for the documentation, wanted to go ahead and get that information out there so people could start sending that our way, and then we're going to share that as soon as possible. But it is something that we are working through with the branches.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I have a question from Selena Taylor.
Yeah, thanks. For the respite care providers who are currently enrolled already with Childcare Aware, what are the steps that they need to take to get you the information you need?
So for those providers who are currently enrolled with Childcare Aware of America, we will likely reach out to you individually to let you know in advance that you're basically good to go, that we have everything we need on file. And that is, just so everybody knows, it's not favoritism or anything. It's just the requirements for the programs are the same. So those providers who are already working with us, that means we have all that documentation on file. So we do want to double check though, obviously, and just make sure everything lines up the same. But yeah, if you are currently enrolled and active with us and know your information is up to date, and we have updated CPR certificates, we will confirm with you individually that you are good to go. But yeah, we're not going to make you follow the resubmission process. I do think it would be good to still request documentation from the Department of the Air Force, so that way you have it on record again, and you can maintain your own information should you ever need to refer back to it, or should we, need it for whatever reason. But if you are currently enrolled, you should be good, and we will reach out to you again to confirm that.
Okay, thanks for explaining that. And what's the likelihood of the pay rate for the EFMP changing with this transition from the Air Force to Childcare Aware of America?
It's a good question. We have to comply as contractors. We have to comply with some certain requirements. So it will likely shift a little bit to meet the minimum requirements that we have to follow. But again, I don't want to go into too much detail because we are still working through that. And again, it's not to keep anything from anybody. It's just we don't want to share anything that isn't finalized yet, because we still have to work through that process. And we know there is a lot of change, so I will say that we are keeping all these changes in mind, because again, these changes are not unique necessarily to the Air Force. They're happening for the Navy as well. So that's part of the conversation is, how do we think about pay along with the other changes that the program are going to. So it's just a lot, and we want to make sure that we pick, we work together and have the best path forward that we can, within the limitations and whatnot. So would love to have that information, but like I said, we want to do our due diligence and make sure we have it all squared away, so that way when we share it with you, it is the final version that's been, cleared by both sides.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much.
No problem.
I would just like to say thank you for everybody's patience as we're going through. We keep seeing people with tons of questions, so we absolutely want to welcome them. So I'm going to kind of be going as I see a hand go up, okay? So the next person that I see is Linda Maika.
Hi, yes, this is Linda. So I wanted to find out, what is the timeline that you will have the details of what the pay will be, because that is not being answered. And also, when are we going to have the details regarding siblings, if they're going to be included in pay or not? Because again, that question wasn't really directly answered. And these are really important, especially if we are respite providers and this is our sole income to provide for our families. We need to know where we stand so that we can see if this is beneficial for us going forward.
Absolutely. I will say that we are working as quickly as we can to turn around the information on pay. We are coming up on the holidays. We'll hopefully get that ahead of that time frame, but can't provide a specific timeline in case that needs to be verified by any particular branch office. But I know that is one of the things that we are trying to turn around as quickly as possible so we can get that information to you. So you can.
So what is your projected timeline? Because you have to have a projected timeline, don't you?
Can I add something here? Andrew's correct. He is working with certainly DAF, and he's working with the Navy. So a lot of that conversation has to take place. So he's not projecting a date is probably more problematic for him because everything is not up to his control.
Okay,
But
so my concerns are that you want us to have our paperwork in by January 31st so that we could qualify for March 1st to do respite and move forward with the new program. But how can we have our paperwork in without a projected date of getting the most important information to us as the provider, as the respite provider?
Well, there are certain documents that you're going to need. If you choose to work with Child Care Aware, I would pre-position those. That information is going to be one of the first things that is forthcoming. I would anticipate around the first part of January. You certainly have the option to wait. I don't know how that will position you as far as getting the rest of the information. Andrew, what are your thoughts on that, sir?
Yeah, absolutely. Since, like I said, that we have to coordinate with the branches on the payment. That's the only reason why we can't provide a timeline right now. But again, that we are tracking that this is top of mind and important information, and want to turn it around and provide it to everybody as quickly as possible. You know, as Ms. Thompson said, you know, if you wanted to hold that until, you know, the documentation until you know the pay rate, that is an option. But I think you could still provide the documentation to us. That way, if it is something you want to continue with, we already have it. And then if for some reason the pay, you know, has you change your mind, you can always let us know and carry forward. But the objective, as we said at the start of this, is to continue on with as many providers as possible, so we can keep the service to families. So that is something we really want to encourage everybody to continue forward and provide those documentation.
Okay, so then when you guys do have the information, is it being sent out in an email? Is it just going to be posted on the website? How do we get that information?
We will probably provide that through multiple avenues. I would imagine definitely email to get that to you as soon as possible. And depending on if it needs, you know, more explanation, you know, we would think through whether it's lives on a website or, you know, is in some other form of communication. But I think we would turn that around and get that to you as quickly as possible via email. And that would be the most direct way, obviously.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Andrew. Okay, so the next person that I see on my list is Sarah Williams. Sarah, are you still there for your question?
Well, I asked a question earlier, but I know everybody's talking about pay. The one thing, are we being paid on the level of need of child or on our qualifications? You know, like we've been being paid on the level of need, a set rate per person, per child, per sibling, whatever. Is it still going to be based on that? Or is it going to be based on if I have a master's degree and 17 years of experience? You know, how is that? At least, can you tell us how that's going to be paid? I mean, it is. I mean, most people don't take a job without knowing these things. So I think everybody is just really upset that we didn't get this information today.
I absolutely understand. And that it's still additional detail I wouldn't be able to go into at this time, because that has to be, you know, cleared with the services, because there is a difference between how you're, you know, currently being paid and how the Air Force, or sorry, the Navy pays providers, but also with the requirements that as a third-party contractor, you know, we have to follow specific requirements. So we're really trying to align all of that as quickly as possible. But like I said, only didn't want to hold up the process for submitting the information so that people can take the time to go ahead and gather that information. And we will turn that around as quickly as we can.
Thank you, Andrew. Okay, so I have a question. Ariel Bell, I have a question from you.
Yes, excuse my crying baby. I actually have several questions. So I'm looking at a few questions that I was asking. I guess there wasn't really much clarification when the last question was asked. Was like, how is it going to be provided, like pay in regards to our qualifications? Are y'all, and it kind of ties into another question as well. You said that you're going to be looking at our resumes in regards to like our educational background and like our professionalism when it came to the care that we provide to families. How is that going to play a role in regards to like when we do need families and they do have different specific needs and we don't have that training for it? Are y'all going to be providing the training for that so that we can provide care? Because I think that there's a bit of a gray area when it comes to that, because say when we were getting our pairs with families here through the Air Force services, we were able to receive trainings so that we can provide care for these families. So are y'all going to be providing training for that, or are y'all just only going to pair us with what we got?
No, that's a good question. So there is the continued requirement for ongoing training. So that is something that we try and connect providers with, and training resources that basically, whether you're caring for a family and you would just like additional specific training on a specific need, connect you with resources in that regard. But also if there's, families in the area that you would like to work with or would like to work with more providers, working with them on that front as well and providing those trainings. It's a good question because I want to make sure that it's not specifically a limitation. It's more to, improve the process for if there's a family that has really specific needs, and that there doesn't have to be a back and forth with, 3 or 4 different providers that may not have the experience to, work with that family. And again, it's something that has caused, we've seen in the past, frustration on a provider side as well, having a 30-minute or so conversation with a family and realizing that they don't feel comfortable or, don't feel like they're the right fit for that family's needs. So it's really just to try and expedite the process, but it's not necessarily a limitation on who can work with who. So I definitely want to make sure to clarify that and appreciate the question.
Okay, because I wanted to get a better understanding on that, because there are a lot of families that do come in with serious medical needs, and not a lot of providers have that because, we didn't go to nursing school. We didn't, like there's only a few people that I believe probably have some medical expertise by going to school for that. So when you were talking about connecting us to these trainings, are we having to pay for these trainings ourselves out of pocket? Or are these trainings that you guys can provide to us so that we can be able to provide care that is not coming out of our pockets?
No, those trainings are provided by the program, either through our office directly or through our partners. So you would not have to pay for that.
Okay, great. And then I had a couple other questions. So when we were talking about like connecting and like sending documentation over, does that automatically connect us as providers with you all once you receive our documentation, or do we have to start a whole process all over again? Because I've worked with child care aware before, and so my thing about it is I'm trying to get a better understanding of, are you guys just wanting our documentation so we can transition over to your program, or are you asking us to do an entire reset and do a whole application process all over again and determine if we're fit? And if you're asking for this documentation for that, what's the timeline for that? Like if we're determined if we qualify with y'all?
No, absolutely. If you qualify with the Air Force currently, like I said, they're providing us your information, so we don't have to have you fill out anything all over again. But there are certain things that we have to have on record, like I said, the background checks and the CPR certification. So it really should mostly be just the providing, getting those documents from the Air Force and providing it to us. And then the banking information, I think, will be, again, that specific information that you may have to fill out again, but that's just because it can't be transitioned. And then I think I heard you mention if there's families that you're working with now. That is something that the Air Force is also providing us is which providers are working with which families currently. So that way we can have that information and again, try and make this as seamless and smooth as possible. So, for everybody that meets the eligibility now and is able to get us the required documentation that we have to have on file, that basically starting March 1, the families who you're working with now that are eligible and or send us the documentation that they need to, that you could just carry forward with care in March. That's the objective.
Okay, and then a couple more questions. These kind of play a line in together. So you talked about a CCOA website that we would be seeing. Is that where we will input our timesheets as well? Is that also where we'll retrieve our 1099 forms? You know what I mean? I'm trying to get a better understanding of like, where are we going to be able to submit our timesheets? How will those be submitted, or are we going through paper again? Are y'all going to be submitting the timesheets on there to where we can put it in there? Or is there a specific way for us to insert the time that we spent with the families?
Yeah, that's going to be a separate process from the website where the information is going to be, because that's just going to be on CCOA's public-facing website, and that's going to mostly be information on the transition. But like I said, we're going to lay out the timekeeping process in a different communication, basically, as we get closer to the March date, so everybody knows that process and going forward, and how and where to put their time for payment.
Okay, I am going to jump in here and let you all know we have come to the hour timeline. I know you all have still a lot of questions, and I don't believe that Mr. Coates, we had you for an hour, sir. And so I'd like to provide an opportunity for us to stay online. The Central Cell team keep this line open so that you can keep asking the questions in the chat, and then we are going to take all of those questions, consolidate down, get the answers, and then be able the answers to the best of our ability of what they know at this time, and then get you guys the answers back. So at this point, I'd like to let Mr. Coates know, if there's anything else you want to say, sir, before we take this offline.
Just that I appreciate everybody's questions. I know that there's still some additional details, and like I said, we're going to keep turning it around. Today is not the last day that we will be communicating with you all. So we're going to kind of log a lot of the questions here in the chat and that have been asked, so that we can make sure to include that information in future communications or on the webpage, and make sure everybody has that process. So just like I said, keep an eye out for those emails, and yeah, we'll carry forward from there.
Thank you, Mr. Coates. Ms. Sharon, an opportunity for you, ma'am, if you don't mind stepping in and just saying a few words.
No, ma'am. Again, appreciate your time and understand your questions and wanting to know the information. I would want them as well. And I can tell you that we are working with the Navy, who is in the process of standardizing their program. So CC Child Care Aware is balancing a lot of things, but again, that information that you need so that you can make the type of decisions that you need to make for you and your family will be forthcoming soon. When I look at touch points, I believe Child Care Aware has an additional 2 touch points with you between now and February. I know that our family support coordinators will be reaching out to our families and you all as well several more times. So you're going to get a lot of emails, a lot of information, but everybody is here to make sure that this transition is successful and that you have the information that you need. So more to follow. Thank you for your questions and for attending.
Thanks, Ms. Sharon. Lastly, Ms. Shute, is there anything you'd like to add?
Thank you, Ms. Lynn. No, again, echoing everything Sharon just said, change and transition is never easy, and we certainly appreciate all of your patience and your excellent questions, right? That's how we learn, and that's how we work through and grow through the change. Certainly know that the partners between the Central Cell, you all, of course, CCAOA and our services team, and of course, Ms. Sharon, are all working very close together, hand in hand, and meeting weekly to ensure we continue with our touch points to all of you. So thank you again. This was an excellent attendance, and we appreciate you, all you do for our families and your involvement. So thank you.
Okay. So at this point, I'll go ahead and close this out. If you do still have questions, please go ahead and continue to populate the chat, and we'll get questions answered to everyone as quickly as we can. Thank you all again, and have a great day.